Hello everyone, it's Chris here, and carrying on with the book show. Thank you for being here. I appreciate all of you. Grateful for you. Grateful for those of you who actually read my books. And I always hope, as an author, you always hope that people find enjoyment from the books. That that it takes them to another world, to perhaps a better world. Perhaps not. I hope not actually, but a different world from which the one you are in right now. So I wish you all the best and happiness, man. I wish that we could live in a place where there's peace on earth. Seems to me I've been married too long to Rebecca now. We're very happily married, by the way. Um, you always laugh at these, remember these beauty contests, and then they ask these pretty females, okay, what do you want now? Peace on earth, peace on earth. It's like they have a standard answer. I've actually represented a few of these models in my legal days, and I can tell you they're not stupid women at all. They're very attractive women, but they're not stupid. Behind that facade, you find actually wonderful people at times. Um, but looking back, most of you listening here are veterans, and I think most of you would agree with me when I say to you, and I wish there was a place where there were and or no need for our skills, where we could just live in peace and just let things go, just be happy, man. Of course, there is such a place. It's called heaven, but I mean on earth now. I suppose that's certainly what happens. That's part of a greater game with Lucifer being thrown out of heaven after his rebellion, coming down to earth, and of course Adam and Eve, all those things. Yeah, it's fascinating this experiment. But anyway, we are here to talk about a book, and the book is called Codename Celery 50. Now, yeah, that's a bit of a strange name, isn't it? There's a lot of people who ask me now, of course, how the hell did you get to that name? It is, as I explain in all the books, that the names actually have nothing to do with the actual book, which is totally military speaking correct. You should not know. For us in South Africa, if I mention Operation Modulaire or Modulaire or like that, Alpha Centauri, we know exactly what we're talking about. But you on the outside would have no idea probably. Um, but if after the fact you had some knowledge about it, then of course you would know, okay, the guys are talking about this and this and this. That's what they mean. So it is basically a secret. The code, it's a code name. It's a code. It refers to something which is not completely obvious to those who just hear it. Now, in my time in the shadows, it was actually funny how they created these code names. The army will tell you. I saw that on what do you call it, on Legacy Conversations, a main channel where we speak to the veterans, and a lot of the things I say here are actually discussed there as well. And as I always say to you, the books were written before Legacy Conversations came into being. So basically, Legacy Conversation confirms the GMJ books. That's amazing. The ones under my own name as well, but that I knew, of course. With GMJ, I knew as well. Yeah, I suppose I knew. A book writes itself in your head before you actually put it on paper. The book's already there. I'm just listening outside for the cats because I'm sure I can hear the cats calling each other. It's very warm here in Phuket, by the way. It's dreadfully warm actually. It's 6 months ago by the time you see here. This is June now, but you'll only see it in 6, 7 months from now. You'll see this video, and it's still monsoon. So what happens with a monsoon is it rains, but sometimes you go for 3, 4, 5 days where there's no rain. And then the heat starts building until something breaks, and we're in that phase now. Well, let's hope that it rains tonight and then it's a bit cooler. But your problem is when comes the mosquitoes. And once the mosquitoes arrive, there's things like dengue fever and all sorts of things. Having said that, still a fantastic place, guys. If you ever can go to Thailand or you can come here to Phuket and see me, you're more than welcome, man. Always welcome here. But anyway, Codename Celery, the name is interesting. Melissa, my late wife, came to visit me in South Africa. We were 8 days together. Actually 7 days and 8 nights. Not sure how I worked that out, but that's how it worked out. And that's actually the only time we were physically together in the 2.5 years we were actually one. Because she went back to the US, I was supposed to follow her. But sadly for me, of course, I was banned in the US. I didn't really know it at that time. I had the feeling I might be. But doesn't matter. She went back, and our idea was also then, if needs be, we can start afresh in a different country. That was our idea too, with Lotta, the one who died before Melissa, many years before I met Melissa. We also thought we would both leave Shadows. She would resign from the French espionage service, and I would leave my people. And we would probably have ended up in Italy. But that was not to be either. Then came Melissa, Mel, Massa. So many names, and you know the story. She went back to the US and she got ill and more ill and more ill until we had to switch the machines off, which was a very easy decision to make, actually. And I know this sounds perhaps a bit hard talk to you, but you don't really want to see a loved one suffering. And when there's no hope for the body anymore, there's no hope, and it's better than to switch the machines off. It is something you really need to speak about to your loved ones. If you're listening here and you're my age and older than me or even younger, guys, you need to speak about this. You need to go and say to your wife or your whatever you have, your children perhaps, guys, this is how it is. I want to be buried. Where? I want to be cremated. That's fine. There's nothing in the Bible says that you cannot be cremated. I know these people will say that. Then most of all is your living will. Do you wish to be kept alive artificially, yes or no? The answer is obviously no. For me, it's your choice to make, but I don't want that. The medical expenses alone will break you, so it's not worth it. And there comes a time when it's better for your soul to be returned to our Lord Jesus, and then if you have faith, then of course you know that with the resurrection, the second coming, you will definitely be resurrected in a new body, a physical body actually, not a ghost, which will know no pain, it will know no illness, live forever. But even that to me was a punishment. I don't want to live forever. If I had to live like I live on earth, not that I live badly, I'm okay, I'm fine actually, no problems. But without the love of God and the love of Jesus and being surrounded by people who is like you in your beliefs and your love for our Lord, and being exposed to Satan and his mates and all the evilness of this world, I always thought that living forever is actually not worth it. Unless you're in heaven or later on the new earth, where you're in peace and you can live and you have peace, man. Then that's fine. That's great. That's a great reward, great as there is. So it's funny how these things go through you, because the name of this book, Codename Celery 50, refers to the time when Melissa was actually in South Africa, and a lot of things went wrong there. I had a Mazda MX-6. You know, it looks like a Porsche, looks like a sports car. I was doing a bit of a bachelor thing at that stage, so I didn't need a family car. Normally I would drive like a 7 Series BMW or something, but Audi S4 Quattro, big cars, powerful, fast, But yeah, in the top of the MX6, and the bloody thing kept on breaking, and I would take it in, and this mechanics would just lie to me in my face, what a bunch of assholes in Pretoria. So of course I had to fetch Melissa at the airport, and I did fetch her, and it was love at the first sight. Of course, by that time we spoke many hours on WhatsApp, or not even sure Skype probably. I don't think WhatsApp was that big those days. But anyway, to make a long story short, the damn car broke again. Then we had to rent a car. We went to the Kruger National Park. There I was extremely impressed with her because we spotted a lion lying in a tree in the shadows at about 400 yards away. Now, of course, if you know her background, you would know she's got absolutely superb eyes. She could really see better than most people with glasses. But she saw. And then one night she says to me she wants to make some kind of dish, and she needs celery. And obviously, when you're sort of on honeymoon, it's quite a big deal, that meal. It's like, doesn't matter what she makes, you eat it. And it doesn't matter what it tastes like. It's fantastic. It's the best ever. You know what I mean, man? You just do the right thing. So, man, we just couldn't find celery. We searched the entire Transvaal almost to find celery. And we just couldn't find celery. And at the end of the day, we found celery, like dried celery, like a spice, but we couldn't find real celery. And so when this book came along, I remembered that, and I thought, okay, make it celery, codename celery. But codename celery alone is not enough, so I put the word 50 in. There's a good reason why I use the word 50, but I'm not explaining it. And so that's where codename celery 50 comes from. That's where I got to the name. It follows up on Green 41, which I believe is a book we spoke about last week. Now, a lot of you asked me, Chris, why didn't you start just at the beginning and went straight through? I could have done that, but my feeling is once this is done, once the series is done, in the sense that I've spoken about every single book, I don't know which book you read first. I mean, you might start with Codename Celery, and then you think, oh, well, perhaps I have to see what happened in Green 41, and then you can just go and find it, It's not, you just search for it. So that's why I was just grabbing it. So I would wake up in the morning and I would say, okay, which one are we talking about today? Okay, let's grab this one. I have no preferences. If you ask me which is the best book I wrote, I don't know, man, because most of them, all of them actually are good. In my eyes, of course. I'm biased, I know that. But all of them are good and like children to me. It really depends on what you want to know. If you want to learn about parachuting, go and read Codename Willowbait. If you want to know about snipers, then read Butterfly. If you want to know whatever, if you want to know about explosives and the use of explosives in the shadows, then go and read Codename Crocodile, which I still need to speak about. So anyway, so that's the story where the name comes from. So you might ask me now, okay, what's the book about? Well, once again, I made some notes, because it's quite a while since I wrote the books. And once I write the book, I don't read it again. I've gone through all of them about 2 years ago and just updated them. Update doesn't mean it changes. It doesn't change at all, but you might look at something and think, okay, perhaps it needs a further explanation. Let's take BRICS, for instance. Since I wrote the books, started in 2014, December, BRICS has increased quite dramatically. And if you've seen or listened to some of the other videos, and especially the one I spoke about many months ago now about the Israel-US war against Iran, where I explained BRICS as well in that episode, which is a special episode. I don't intend doing a lot of it. But where it's important and people ask my opinion, I will always give it without fear or favor. So I do look at notes. So anyway, what's happening here is the story actually starts in Green 41. As I say to you, the books do follow on each other. It is a complete story. You don't need to read all the books to get a complete story because there's a story in every one. But if you want to know what happened further, then of course you have to read the next book. And you can ask me now, why did you do it like that, man? It's the books are really about on average 400 pages long, each of them. And so if you start putting all the stories in one, you're going to end up with, if I have to combine Green 41 and Celery 50 with each other, you talk about an 800-page book. It's just, it's too much. It's too much. It just doesn't work out that. Then I have to make the font so small that you can't read it. Even the fonts, even that is deliberate. If you have a font on the Kindle version, is Verdana. It's quite a big font, and it's, of course, you can change it on your Kindle. But it's also one of the fonts which I actually say to help people with dyslexia so that they can read easier. So I've done it like that. Of course, everything's in audio now, so you can listen to audio as well. Lots of people, of course, says, yeah, but the audio voice is not yours. No, it's not mine, man. You'll be glad, be very grateful because I don't speak well. I know the way I speak isn't that clear for many reasons. Doesn't matter why, but that's how it turned out. That's my life. That's how I speak. Still better than Bill Casey of the CIA, by the way. Couldn't hear a word that guy was saying. But anyway, of course, and it's artificial intelligence with the audio as well. There's no way I've said this before that I can actually afford to pay somebody, some actor, to go and read my books, and so I was very grateful when Amazon came up with artificial intelligence voices. And I took the one which is what I thought which was the closest to the way that Foxtrot would speak. But since you don't know Foxtrot, I never met the man and never actually heard him speak, you'll just have to take my word for it. By the way, the rhythm at what you speak is also like a fingerprint. Nobody speaks at the same speed. I'm not talking about guys reading the news. I'm talking just like you would speak, like I'm speaking now. No, that's a dead giveaway. We can actually analyze that. And even if we have no clue what you're saying, but of course we do have translators, we will be able to identify a human being on the rhythm of his speech. I don't know if you knew that. It's interesting. It's a South African invention, by the way. It's then spread across the BRICS security agencies. The West, do they do that? I don't know. I doubt it. You know, they're so arrogant. They're behind the times in many ways, very far behind the times. But anyway, so the story starts in Green 41, where the South Africans basically are after a warlord in Green 41. This warlord, the mistake he made is he captured one of Angelique's people called Lucy, who's a sniper. I speak about her often in the books. And Lucy then is actually on, let me not say she's on Legacy Conversations. She might be. She might be under her real name. And so Lucy then is captured and brutally abused, and then she escapes, and she ends up in a place of safety because he's not all there. And then she comes back on operations because he wants to kill this guy, this warlord. And the warlord is also supplying drugs, trying to destabilize the peacekeeping missions. And the question arose, is it possible to do that? We looked at Vietnam and what happened at Vietnam with drug use and so forth. And very interesting the conclusions we came to. But you can read the book to decide for yourself and if we're correct in what we said. But in Celery 50 now, they are not interdicting the convoys and logistic routes of this warlord anymore with his drug smuggling. What they're doing now is they're going to go after him, which means they're going to kill him. It is that simple. And the Mossad people also arrive in the form of Farik and his wife, Deborah, who's people I know and very well respected. Good friends of mine, actually. And they after the same warlord because they have information that this guy is using his labs, his laboratories, which is creating the drugs. He's actually using that for weapons of mass destruction. Now, yeah, I know that since Iraq and the lies of Iraq and now recently the lies of Iran, you know, the bullshit of the West is just amazing. And the way that, you know, the mainstream media just lies along is amazing. I I once did a study in my books on how pro-war US mainstream media really is. And it is astonishingly pro-war. Doesn't matter if it's CNN, the Clinton News Network, or Fox, or Breitbart, or whatever they call themselves. They just aggressive to a point of insanity. If they can, there's not a war they don't laugh. It's like that Lindsey Graham. There's never a war which he doesn't want to fight with somebody else's children. You know, that guy who was actually an attorney in the US during the first Gulf War and then told everybody he was a Gulf War veteran. Yeah, but you were never deployed, you little fat asshole. And if you're not deployed to the war zone, how the hell can you call yourself a veteran of that war? Huh? Isn't that stolen valor? I think it is. Yeah, what do you think? What do you think? Of course, from a certain viewpoint, I'm sure he signed many documents and drafted some legal documents and whatever. See the respect in my eyes. Yeah, I'm rolling with. Hope you can see it. But the mainstream media in the US is totally pro-war. They are just utter, it's like, yeah, man, we gotta just arrive, we gotta kill you. Oh, look at the beauty of our weapons. Yeah. One idiot actually said that on TV. It was of 2017 when they launched the cruise missiles on Syria for a chemical attack which didn't even take place. It was staged. Yes, it was staged. Yeah, and they launched that and the Russians downed most of them and they captured 2 of your cruise missiles. And what happened in later years in Ukraine? Your cruise missiles get shot down every time they launch. You have stopped launching them now because you have no answer. You're wasting money. Yeah. Brilliant, eh? Donald Trump. Such a brilliant mind. Yeah. One of the most stupid people I've ever seen in my life. But that goes for most of the US politicians anyway. West too, don't throw them away. You just don't find good leadership anymore there. It's pathetic, it's how they change. But I'm not going to go into Oath of Evil again. You can read the book yourself to see what's happening. Or listen carefully what I said about the Israel-US 12-day war. It's by this time would be probably 300 days war because it was just the first opening salvos. But we don't know. We don't know the future. So anyway, so the Mossad people are saying there's this laboratory which this warlord is running. They want access to it. So the combined operation starts. And we're going to attack this place Lucy is going with, and Lucy is definitely going to get hold of this guy. And in the final pages of the books, you can see what Lucy actually did to him. Cannot say I feel sorry for him at all. I actually wish I had more time to inflict even more pain. But he was begging quite quickly. I saw that a lot of the times, the toughest, the guys with the Marine haircut, they beg quite quickly. But if you have a guy who's just common looking, this scrawny little twat, they turn out to be quite tough. So you cannot judge a guy on the way he looks. I know you should never do that, but what I've also seen with the selections is that the guy who arrives flexing his muscles and back talks a lot, doesn't make it, doesn't have it. He just doesn't have it inside in him. So yeah, it's a fascinating observation. But there is another thing which I describe in this book, which is quite interesting because Angelique decides that she's also going to destroy his crops. And what she's going to do is she's going to take her aircraft. She's got an old Argosy or something you call it from the RAF with 2 Rolls-Royce engines. It's a very strange looking aircraft, twin boom. I'll put a picture for you here if I can find it. She's got one of these things and she wants to fly low at night and she wants to spray it with something like Agent Orange and just destroy his damn crops. Now, there's a reason why I brought that into the books, because I wanted to discuss Agent Orange. Now, most of you would actually know about Agent Orange. You would know that it was used in Vietnam during the Vietnam War, and it was quite a powerful chemical mixture. There's no way in the world I'm saying this word tetrachloridibenzedioxin. Oh, I give up. TCDD. I think the artificial intelligence guy is gonna struggle with this word, man. And they were spraying all the forest in Vietnam to be able to see the terrorists and to be able to also deny them food, of course, and cover. They were doing that, and the side effect is they were destroying crops as well. As I say, denying food. So your problem here is that is that it caused all sorts of illnesses and cancers and sort of things. Now is that true or is it rumor? As far as I could see, there were indeed a whole bunch of strange things which happened afterwards. So yeah, so they sprayed 19 million US gallons of this Agent Orange over 4.5 million acres of land. That's 66,000 square miles. That's big, man. And they did it for 13 years, from 1961 to 72. And they call it Operation Ranch Hand, which is also known quite well. They were not the first to use it, and that's what came out in my research. Isn't that interesting? They were not the first military to use this tactic. In fact, it was used in the Malayan emergency 10 years before. Yeah, that is when the Brits, who else? Of course, the Brits. You know, those people who would smile at you and call you mate and buy you a beer, and it's a very nice person until he kicks you between the legs and asks your opinion on his leeches. That's the princess and the king and the queen. Yeah. There's a reason why they created such a big empire, you know. Yeah, you have to show a bit of respect, especially if you're colonial, like we are. We colonials. They look down upon us. And to be frank with you, we piss on them in Sub-Saharan Africa. We think nothing of them. In fact, if I have to tell you how many times the British Army has asked me for assistance on legacy conversation, to speak to certain people to assist them in training operations and other operations in Africa, you'll be very surprised. And of course, we help where we can. I mean, it's just the right thing to do, isn't it? But anyway, I don't hold them in great respect. Not anymore. Well, I never did, actually. But anyway, to make a long story short, they also use something called Agent Blue, which is like Agent Orange. But it now became a scapegoat for everything and anything. So the question here is Agent Orange actually solely, and it's very important that word, solely, to blame for the deaths which came to the veterans? I really don't know. I don't think so. Not at all. No. I think it's more complex than that. But it probably played a role, and it definitely played a role with the Vietnamese. The other problem which we see in Vietnam is that because US military people cannot keep their little pricks in their pants, and they do everything from ghost to boys to whatever girl they can find. They do them, and then of course they run for home and leave a child behind. There's a lot of these children who now are grown-ups, I mean in our age now, who's actually like mixed breed. And they had a very hard time in Vietnam as well, with their mother, of course. It's very sad. It's very sad when you cannot take damn responsibility for your little prick. But that happens everywhere. You go to Afghanistan, you go to Iraq, you go to Europe, man, it doesn't matter where the US military is deployed. And with that, I include NATO. You just can't keep your little fingers inside. It's just like that. And the use of Viagra in the US military is beyond belief. So anyway, so this plan of Angelique to go and spray these things can be done. It's not a problem, but of course, she has to find those fields because she doesn't want to spray the crops. And what these warlords do, these drug lords, they do integrate themselves with the locals. So they will have local farmers actually looking after their crops. So many times these things are sort of mixed. And so special forces teams were actually scouted out, and then they would bring them in at night and they would spray them. The question behind the question here is what happened in Afghanistan? How is it that the Taliban took over, and the Taliban, within 1 year of taking over, stopped poppy? That's where heroin comes from, and they stopped that productions in 1 year, 1 season. Yeah, they stopped it. While the US military and the coalition forces, bunch of losers. You couldn't even stop it. Right? How long were you there? 20 years? 20 years, yeah. I read some books from some guys. This one guy was actually a paratrooper in a parachute regiment, the British Army. And then he became like a Scotland Yard person, and then he became quite high there, actually. And then he became like a commissioner or something there to assist with a drug eradication program in Afghanistan. And try as I might, I just couldn't understand why could you not erase the poppy trade? Why could you not do what Angelique did and just go and spray those poppies? Or since you controlled the ground, why don't you just go there and just destroy the crops? And just feed these people other things or whatever. But no, never happened. Fascinating to me that my CIA friends tell me it all has to do with the drug trade. And it has to do with the CIA network smuggling these drug trades. Is it true? Man, I don't know. I have no evidence of that. Besides the word and all the rumors you hear on the internet. Is it possible? Yeah, it can be. Is it just incompetence, as usual, from the brave US military, best military in the world? Yeah, Donald Trump. Yeah, we believe you. No, really, no, best in the world. Shame. You're not the best in the world, but you're nothing. You're nothing. You have good individual people there. We should admit that. But for the rest of you, overall, shame. Shame. But time will tell, we'll see. When you take on Russia or China, let's see what happens to you. I say this with deep regret. I don't want to really see you dead. I don't. I really don't. I'm peaceful now, But, yeah, respect is earned. I've seen nothing from you which earned my respect. In fact, what I see is a bunch of morons with weapons. Low IQ people, low IQ officers. Me saying so? No. Go and read the books which is written about West Point, the military academy. Yeah, I think I'll put the quote for you here. Yes. Then I'm not going to tell you again about your panic shooting. Yeah. Well, the fact that you have such shite weapons. But anyway, whatever. I'm not, you know what, guys? Peace on earth, man. That's what we want. So anyway, so that's the reason why I put it in this book as well. I wanted to see what went wrong in Afghanistan with the poppy trade, why it couldn't be controlled, and the only assumption is they didn't want to control it. Even they are not that pathetic. They might be, and they probably are, but you could have stopped it. But they didn't. And then I also look at the Chemical Weapons Convention Treaty of 1983, which the real name is actually the Convention on the Prohibition of the Development, Production, Stockpiling. Listen, US, stockpiling, because you're the only country in the world. When the book was written, we still have huge stockpiles. And use of chemical weapons and their destruction. And this treaty, which was signed by most countries, actually prohibits the use and production of chemical weapons, and well as also saying they have to get rid of their chemical weapons, they have to destroy them. Now, it took 14 years for people to actually sign this thing. But by 1997, this thing was signed, and they even created an overseer, which is the OPC, that's the translation for the prohibition of chemical weapons. Now we're back in Iraq in 2017, or Syria 2017. where these medical people, the ones who went to Canada now, yeah, that country who applauds the Nazis in the parliament, yeah, that place. Yeah, Trudeau, the one who they say so, not me, they say so that his daddy was actually who? Fidel Castro, yeah, they even look like each other, I must say. It's like this Prince Harry, he doesn't really look like King Charles, does he? No, he looks like that Major, which had, had a sexual relationship with his mom, the late Princess Di. Is it like that? I'm not saying it. No, I don't know. I'm just noticing that according to law, before DNA came out, you know what they would do from Roman law times? They would put the child there, they would put the daddy, which the woman has pointed out as the daddy. Oh, Donald Trump, are you still the daddy of NATO? I cannot believe it. Just yesterday it comes out that this idiot Rutte of the NATO Secretary General started calling Donald Trump daddy. Daddy. My word. My word. Don't you want to kiss his feet? Huh? Rutte? Wil jy bietjie afsak in sy voete ook vir hom lyk, hè? Hè? Ek neem aan jy kan Afrikaans verstaan, ek weet jy praat Hollands, hè? Hè? Ja, ja. Yeah, you people who don't know what I said now, just don't worry about it. I'm just laughing at this guy who actually calls the US president daddy. You know, it's like a flippin' African dictator who's called Idi Amin. You know what he was called? Yeah, he was called daddy. Do you know that? Yeah, fascinating, huh? And then this NATO Rutte, this idiot, starts making noises. Oh no, we need to get into Africa. What the F are you going to do in Africa, mate? You're too pathetic to even operate in Europe. How are you going to operate in Africa? We've seen you. We've seen your attempts. And we've seen what nonsense you caused. But okay, peace, guys, peace. You don't want to go on. Anyway, so this organization, OPCW, there was actually a South African with this chemical attack which led to the raids and the beauty of our weapons. Oh my, quoting Leonard Cohen when you see these cruise missiles being launched from ships. What an asshole, what an idiot. Call himself a journalist. Yeah, well, all journalists, you know. But anyway, so this was staged, completely staged by this medical group which was created by MI6 and which then later ran to Canada, where they still are. And it's a matter of time before these jihadis are going to attack you. But when they do, see me laughing, I'm going to laugh at you. Warned you before. Sorry about those who will die. I don't wish bad upon you. But blame your Nazis in Parliament, man. Don't blame me. Don't blame me. That's where it starts. Your critters, not mine. But anyway, so make a long story short, there was actually a South African who came out and said there was no chemical weapons. This was not a chemical attack. They completely politicized. You know, they completely was this OPCW. He completely came out and he just suppressed this guy totally, got rid of him. So I have to ask you, what is the use of getting an independent body, which is supposed to be independent, and is even based in The Hague, Den Haag, to be even further independent? Why don't you base yourself in Swineland, in Switzerland, huh? Oh, they're not neutral either. Yeah, of course not. Yeah, the police state of Switzerland. Go and look at my video which I made about it, called The Police State Switzerland. You'll be shocked out of your mind. Go and read my books and see where I expose these assholes in Switzerland, the swine. Yeah, you'll be shocked. But again, guys, peace, want peace. So to make a long story short, they were lying with him, as happened with this 12-day war of Iran and Israel and the US. Yeah, we were body overseeing the nuclear programs, IEA or whatever, where they also issued false reports, which gave the US and Israel the green light to break every single UN charter, every single international law, attacking even its fake attacks and arranged beforehand, nuclear facilities. Oh, amazing. Can't believe these guys, the corruption is so deep, so very deep. But anyway, so They were created and they were supposed to check, but their problem is there are places like Egypt and North Korea and South Sudan who haven't signed that treaty, so we're not allowed to do that. But they're talking shite. I mean, where they report, they're mostly false reports anyway. You can't take their word. In Syria, they were talking about sarin gas, which is nonsense. It never happened. But the good news is about 90% of the world's chemical weapons have been destroyed since. All of them in what Russia had destroyed. But the problem is, of course, US. Hello, US. Hello, second beast. Talk like looks like a lamp and talk like what? Like a dragon. Yeah. So in other words, you look like a Christian nation, but you act like a beast. Act like Satan. Why? Because you're under Satan's control. I will not explain this to you again. Second beast, first beast, dragon, Rome, papacy, Antichrist. Guys, if you listen to any of my videos or read Oath of Evil, you will definitely know what I'm talking about. It's for you to go and find out if I'm telling the truth or if I'm just making this up. Of course, it's directly out of the Bible, so I'm not making it up. But anyway, yeah. What country is it which took so long to actually destroy its chemical weapons? Yeah. What do I hear? US, yeah, US. In fact, we're not even sure that actually all the chemical weapons have been destroyed in the US as we sit here, because we hear different stories. But anyway, as you can imagine, the Jewish state Israel also have chemical labs. In fact, the first president, who was it, Weizmann, he was actually very good at chemical. He was a PhD in it, and he played a major role in the First World War with chemical weapons. So they know something about it, and of course we know about the camps. But we also know about Dimona, Dimona. So it's not demonic, but it's close enough. Dimona, which is a sensitive storage area in the Negev Desert. That's where the experimental and production of chemical weapons are going. Now, let me say something to you, my Jewish friends and my Israeli mates. If I know about it, because I'm not interested in the Middle East, to be honest, except from when the Third World War will start. It's not my theater. I don't really care that much about it. In fact, I don't give a shit. Besides, like I said, to watch and observe and to see the Third World War coming out of it. If I know about it, so does Iran, so does Turkey, so does everybody else. Yeah, perhaps you should put a few of your useless Patriot missile batteries around that place. If, of course, you have something inside it which can harm you. But of course, I'm sure you don't. Of course not. Because they don't acknowledge this. If you ask them, it's the same as the nuclear weapons program, which we know you have nukes. I mean, it's open secret. But once again, they will not allow people to investigate and to go and look at it. So, when you talk about the chemical warfare program, the Israeli one, they would just shock and smile at you and say, no comment, wink, wink. Yeah, true. Well, it's good psychology, you create doubt. You wonder if it's there, if it's not there, should you attack, should you not attack? And of course, if you push it too far, there's a good chance that they will murder you. It is the country with the greatest, and by that I don't mean the best, I just mean the greatest, like in numbers, the most assassinations in the world. It's more than between 3,000 and 4,000 as we see. It's big here as we sit here today. And it helped them absolutely bugger all. That's my problem with it. And that was my problem in the shadows too. Yes, we've taken out this warlord, it's true. But there's now another warlord. Okay, let's take him out. Okay, right. Let's take him out. Guy's name is Celery 51. There's no such book. I'm just talking. And now he's dead. Okay, first there's another warlord. Okay, right. Let's go and kill him. Guys, where does it end? What's the answers? Let's get practical. What's the answers? Should we do what happened in Thailand, where they said, okay, you can smoke weed now, wherever you want? I hold people who smoke weed in contempt mostly. Not all of them. Some of my mates do this and got good reasons, and they do it more for medical reasons. I can live with that. But when I have like a guy in uniform, like you've seen during Vietnam, he's sitting in uniform and he's passed out with a needle still in his arm. He's high on heroin. You know, my first feeling of that is just pick him up and throw him in the river, man. Let him die and go to have some peace, man. Some peace. But that's me, you know. I'm very straightforward, and luckily I don't have such afflictions, and I'm grateful for it. But the fact of the matter is that drug use will always be with us. It's like homos and lesbians and these people with their strange things they do in their bedroom. Strange for me, anyway. Um, there will always be a very small percentage of such people. You can't get rid of it. So, should you then make drug use legal and just take away the criminal element like they tried in the Netherlands? Because some people will do it and some won't. I don't know. I don't know the answers. But I can tell you that the Israeli chemical weapons program is going to be exposed at some stage. And it's interesting because, as I always say to you, that once this book was published, there was newspaper articles about the Mossad raid in a different country from the one which plays off in the books, saying exactly what I'm saying in this book to you. So it wasn't total fiction now, was it? No, it wasn't. And the one which the newspaper articles write about is not the story of Celery 50, because they don't. It's a separate one. So my only assumption is there must have been more than one of these drug labs making weapons of mass destruction. And yeah, by that they mean chemical things like sarin gas, things which you can kill people with quickly. Because that's your problem with the drugs. Unless you have an overdose right in the beginning, it takes a couple of years for your body to succumb to drug use. In fact, we've seen with white slavery in the read code name 1 Alpha, where we speak about it. And what we've seen there is that it takes about 3 years of drug abuse for a young woman who is now also prostituting herself, whether she wants to or not. It takes about 3 years for her body to give up and she dies. And she becomes so ugly that nobody wants her. And then she's useless as a prostitute. But you know, in my police days, I've seen men actually rape grannies of 80. So I don't know. It's a power game, man. It's got nothing to do with looks. But I have to say, if you're able to get it up, if you're a younger man and you get it up for a woman of 80, well, there's something wrong with you in my eyes. The same if you can get it up for a child bride of 9, hello Mohammed, then, yeah, you're a pedophile. That's all you are. You have to be. No normal man will be sexually excited by that because there's nothing to be excited about. You know, nothing has been developed yet. Well, why would you be excited? So yeah, so that's the way it is. Then they also have, as Israelis now, they've got the Israeli Institute for Biological Research in Ziona. That is where Professor Marcus Klingsberg, who was a KGB spy actually, was operating inside Israel. So he was obviously a Jew, but he was operating for the KGB. And he knew all about it. And he's the one who betrayed it right from the beginning. And he was actually a departmental head at Nez Ziona. So yeah, so he came from Poland when he stayed a communist. A lot of Israelis are actually communists. You find the entire communities there was communist, man. That's where the entire system of working together on the kibbutz is. It's communism. That's where it comes from. And so he reported everything he knew to the KGB. And then, of course, went into the vault. And when South Africa became a BRICS member, then, of course, different intelligence agencies started talking to each other, and that's why I could read the vault. Yeah, there you go. He was an idealist. After he got exposed, he went to Paris. And the funny thing about this professor, I don't know if he's still alive, Klingsberg, is that he's still being paid a small pension by the Jewish state, about £2,000 a month. After his release of prison, yeah, he went to jail. And he was also a former lieutenant colonel in the IDF. Yeah, but they never stopped. They never stopped paying his pension. So what's that about? What's that about? What can we think of Professor Klingsberg, the former colonel? Is it possible that he was playing a double game, guys? Is it possible? Do you think it's possible that perhaps he deliberately started leaking this to the KGB as a warning? Because he knew that the KGB, through Russia, through the Soviet Union, would then start warning their mates around him, the Arab friends. Is that possible? It certainly is possible. We certainly have to think like that, because the Israelis didn't execute him. They could have, but they didn't. And they're still paying him a pension. Which doesn't say that, it does not say, of course, that the chemical weapons program doesn't exist. It might have been a leak. But anyway, I don't know. I really don't know. Then there was another strange incident which comes out in the books. It's El Al Flight 1862, 1862. That aircraft was a cargo aircraft, the 747, and it crashed in 1992. And it had 50 gallons of dimethyl methyl phosphonate. That's what you make sarin gas with, sarin nerve gas. And it crashed into a flats in Holland. Yes, at Klein Kruitberg Flats in Bijlmermeer at Amsterdam. Yeah, it's quite well known. As I speak here, I can actually see, I saw a documentary on it. The aircraft turned like this, and he just flew right into this apartment building and exploded. Of course, the crew died. May they rest in peace. And a lot of rumors came out, because that was the first time that we actually knew for certain that El Al is being used to transport this type of cargo. And that brings us back, of course, to the South African tragedy by Helderberg, which we spoke about at length on Legacy Conversations, especially with the rescue teams. But the problem here with the theoretical theories about it is that they didn't declare this. It was in the cargo, in the cargo manifesto, what do you call it? It was declared, so it was not secret. But was that a double bluff? Is it possible? Is this? I don't know. Again, is it a double bluff? You don't know. That's a problem in the shadows, man. You have to look at so many factors to understand whether something is actually what you see, or there's some games being played here at the back. Very interesting just about the first known assassination by use of biological weapons by Mossad was actually a Palestinian called Dr. Wadi Adat. And they say he was involved with El Al plane, which was hijacked in 1968. That's the last time they ever could do it. That is where Switzerland, because a whole bunch of aircraft was actually captured, about 4 of them. They were parked on a deserted runway in Jordan, I believe. And then they were blown up after the passengers and crew were removed. They were so innocent in those days. And then Switzerland came and they made a deal with Yasser Arafat of the PLO that they would wash his money and keep his money and pay him. Yeah, they bribed. And in exchange, PLO will not attack Swiss Air. That's exactly what happened. They tried to deny it, of course, being the swine, they can't stand up. They're not man enough to say, oh, I made a mistake. No, you didn't make a mistake. No. You collaborated with a terrorist movement. Yeah, that's what you did. Neutral, huh? neutral, very neutral country, that pieces of shite. So anyway, so they wanted to kill this Dr. Wadi Haddad, and so they decided they're going to give him some Belgium chocolates, which they coated with some sort of a biological uh, specimen. It caused this Dr. Haddad to lose weight, and his immune system was severely affected. So much so that he died on March 30th, 1978, in an East German hospital. Mm, mm. So that's the first biological, let's call it poisoning, chemical poisoning of a Palestinian assassination by Mossad. I'm not going to tell you the story again. It is in here where they tried to kill Hamas official Khaled Mashal, where they used the cocaine as cover, where they sprayed him with this cocaine. They shook it, they sprayed him, it went into his face. I tell the story in another book. And then they got captured, and then they had the Mossad doctor was on standby to treat their own people. Instead, they get contaminated. I think this was also in Jordan. And then they agreed they will release these people if she will inject this fellow, this victim. And then they got scared that she might inject him with poison. The most beautiful female doctor, beautiful, beautiful woman. But anyway, that was quite funny. Things went very wrong there, and we all laughed a bit. But anyway, so that's how it is. And so you can understand that the Israelis actually have an entire view on criminal drug labs, able and capable and manufacturing weapons of mass destruction which can be used against Jews. So these things has happened. I mean, we know about the sarin gas attack in the Tokyo subway. I do speak about that in other books as well, so I'm not going to repeat it. It's fascinating, isn't it, what comes out in the GMJ books? It's really fascinating. Also in this book is they designed some kind of communication system in Coke, which works with DNA or something. I describe it in the books, but I totally don't understand exactly how it works. But it's in the book, and perhaps you can understand a bit more of it. But then there's something which I talk about here, which is very fascinating to me anyway, because it's got to do with George W. Bush. Now, George W. Bush, I don't know if you guys remember this. I actually made a documentary about this as well, where he took Air Force One and he flew to Baghdad in November of 2003. Now, in November 2003, things were still quite hot in Iraq, in Baghdad, because the US has invaded and just fucked up like always. And they couldn't get the situation under control because they thought they were going to walk in and it's going to be like Hitler in Austria. Yeah, you Austrians, we didn't forget about that. No. We remember your action during the Great Snot Sector, which name I can't even mention. Yeah, I remember your clan dance. I remember your woman sitting there and say they think that people who don't want to get that poison thing should actually be executed because they're executing other people by not doing it. Yeah, I remember you. I remember your chancellor as well. You know, what's that fellow who became a German? What's his name? That Catholic. What's his name again? Yeah, Adolf Hitler, you know, moustache man. Yeah, Austrian. Yeah, we remember, you know, when he actually came back and he marched into Austria. I remember you were cheering. Yeah, you were standing there. Welcome, Nazis. Welcome, Nazis. So glad to see you. Yeah. We remember you. Yeah, you're as bad as Switzerland. Really. Don't get airs. There's nothing special about you. But anyway, George Bush decided he's going to visit Baghdad, and so he's flying in. And then he flew in. It was so secretive, in fact. In fact, the US press started describing it as the most secretive and most gallant, that means bravery, brave trip ever undertaken by a president in recent memory. Oh my. So tell me, idiots, what was brave about that? Yeah, tell me, what was brave about it? It's the same like this bombing of the Iranian nuclear site, this practice run of yours from Missouri or wherever, just fly over the ocean. Yeah, get refueled a few times. Yeah, just a practice run. What's special about it? Please tell me. When you enter airspace where you are actually allowed to enter, yeah, it's all arranged. No one's shooting at you. Yeah, and then you drop your bombs and you piss off home and you arrive 3 days later and now you're a hero. And you forgot completely about the two signal intelligence satellite ships there of the Chinese Navy lying there, tracking every move of yours. Yeah. Fantastic, fantastic. What bullshit, when you look through these things and you look at it and you think to yourself, oh, what's wrong with these people? Do they actually believe themselves? Yeah, they do. That's a problem. Now, as I say in the book, there's actually two flights which is actually brave, which you can go and read about if you want to know more. And the first one was the German female test pilot during April of 1945. In other words, less than a week before the surrender, she flew into Berlin, where there was huge fighting going on at that stage, with a Fischler Storch. And there is actually one standing in South Africa. There's one standing at the Surf Museum at Swartkos base. I might even have a picture of me standing there. I didn't make a video about it because I was concentrating on the South African border war when we made all those videos for Legacy Conversations, but I might in the future look at the Second World War ones, because the Fischler Storch is one of these things which Field Marshal Rommel also was flying. Kesselring, all these people, they're all pilots, by the way. They trained as pilots to be able to do close observation. And this damn thing can land in a tennis court almost, and it's amazing. And take off. And she was, of course, a very famous test pilot, this Hannah Reach. And she landed there. And as I said, this city at this stage was under attack by 41,000 artillery pieces and 1.5 million Soviet soldiers storming it. And the elements of the Soviet Third Shock Army was in fact already in the Tiergarten, which is like the zoo. And it was very close to the Reichs-Chancellery where Hitler was hiding out. And she was flying in, and I think she had the head of the Luftwaffe who took over from Goering with her. They were lovers or something. And he got shot in the foot or in the leg or something. But anyway, you can read about it also in this book and other books. It was incredibly brave flight. Whether you agree with Hannah Reich's views on the Nazis or not doesn't matter. We were looking at the flight. But there is one who is totally unknown, and she's totally unknown because she was never really in the spotlight. And she had an unfortunate name for the Germans anyway. And that is a woman called Melita Schenk, who's a Grafin von Stauffenberg. Okay, guys, if you know anything about Germany and Nazi and the 1944 bomb plot, you will know the word von Stauffenberg. Now, von Stauffenberg, of course, is a guy behind the attempted murder of Hitler, or assassination. That sounds so much better. We were used explosives, which we got from the Netherlands with SOE. I speak about that as well in many books, not this one, but in some books, where SOE in the Netherlands were actually totally compromised. So all their weapon drops, as well as their agent drops, actually ended up in concentration camps or under German control. Kriegspiel, or something they called it. And some of these plastic explosives, were being used to try and assassinate Hitler, but sadly the bastard survived. Now, this Melita was a superb pilot, and she actually qualified as a flight captain in 1957, which is the rank which the Germans have for all test pilots. It doesn't matter if he's actually a colonel in the Air Force or whatever, his rank is flight captain, Vluchtkapitein. That is like an honorary rank for all test pilots. But Schenk, she wasn't married by that time to von Stauffenberg yet. She was in deep trouble because her grandparents were actually Jewish. So she was seen as undesirable. So she lost her job as an aeronautical engineer. And when she married in 1957, she married this Alexander Schenk, Graf von Stauffenberg, which, of course, as I said, is linked to the July 20, 1944 bomb plot to assassinate Hitler. And because of her name now, so she was family. She married into the family of a guy who actually did it. So she was absolutely arrested because Germany then brought out a law which says if you commit a crime, then we can punish your family. Where does that come from? Catholic Church. Yeah, that's where it comes from. That's where it comes from. Go and read Oath of Evil. You'll find the other shite which comes from that system. And again, guys, I'm not saying that a Catholic person is a horrible satanic person. I'm not saying that. I'm talking about the system. Don't put words in my mouth. I don't take kindly to that. But anyway, she was then arrested, of course, as were so many of us. And they had to release her after 2 weeks because she really knew nothing about it. And she was also working as a technical chief at some research place, and it was valuable. Because by this time she had a master's degree in aeronautical engineering. And we had to release her, but of course she was totally under observation by the Gestapo. Now it's fascinating, the Gestapo and that other snot sector, which I'm not allowed to call the name on. You know that Gestapo was actually not a very good police intelligence agency at all. They were actually quite shite. They got 80% and more of the information came from what? What do I hear? In pink piece and informants. Yeah. What happened during the snot sector? What happened? Oh yeah, your neighbors were actually reporting on you, weren't they? Yeah. Especially in Austria, yeah, we didn't forget. New Zealand, yeah, you suck. What about Australia? Yeah, you suck too. Yeah. Swineland. Yeah, I have to say, I was in Swineland in those days. It wasn't that bad. They did have a clampdowns, but it wasn't as bad as say in South Africa. Yeah, you suck too. And then it came out, of course, your 6 foot rule, bullshit. No scientific evidence. No, nothing. Now all these things are coming out. Isn't it strange? Yeah. I feel sorry for you people who actually fell for this. You have that poison in you now. Some stage it might actually get you. Yeah. See the worry in my eyes. I don't care. I don't care at all. Couldn't care, man. I'm pure blood. I don't care. Anyway, this Melita, she when the war broke out, she tried to join the Red Cross. She didn't want to fly as a test pilot because she didn't believe in the war. She was totally not a Nazi. She saw right through Hitler and the Nazis. She thought they were vulgar. so she was actually ordered to become a test pilot again at the test facility in Rechlin, in Mecklenburg. Now, guys, that word Rechlin is actually a very, very important because that is where they took Hitler in 1938 or 39. And they showed him the prototype of aircraft, and they never explained to him that it's prototypes. So he had an idea of his Air Force which wasn't quite true. And so many say that he made decisions based upon that which he should never have made. But anyway, she became a test pilot there, and she did well. And then, of course, the bomb plot came in 1944. She was arrested. After she was released, she removed her name. She changed the name away. She dropped the name Graffens von Stauffenberg, and she became a Graffen or Schenk or lady. If you want to translate Graffen to it's a title, like aristocracy. But sadly, her husband and the rest of her family were now being held in concentration camps. All the von Stauffenberg children were being taken away. Yeah, that's another German thing. They take your children and they gave them to good Aryan families. It took a blame while for them to be found afterwards. Fascinating. Just this morning I read something, when Joe Biden opened the borders for all these Catholics to stream across the borders. That's what they are. Coming from South America, they're Catholic all the way. Yeah. Of course, most of you will say, yeah, and they will vote Democrat. Yeah, they will. But it's fascinating how they want to change America into a Catholic country, eh? Of course they did. That's when it became the second beast. Yeah, rebirth of evil. And then they found out that the children would come over, and then some people would claim them, and then the US being stupid, they just handed the children over. Now they started doing on the Trump, they started doing DNA tests, see if this woman is actually the mother of this child. No. 1/3 of these children, 1 out of 3, there's no family resemblance whatsoever in DNA. So you know what happened? Huh? Joe Biden? Huh? What happened, you little flippin' Jesuit? Yeah, tell me what happened. It's all pornography, that's what happened. Yeah. White slavery, yeah. Human trafficking, yeah. Legally. You assisted with that. Every one of you who signed that child over to these people. Yeah. I hope one day when God asks you about this that you have answers ready. But anyway, the Stauffenberg children were taken away as that. She did her best to assist these people, the family members in the concentration camps, but how far can you do it, man? It's a system against you. What can you do? Anyway, she was known to be not a Nazi, but she was loyal to Germany. In other words, she's a patriotic German. Nothing wrong with that. Patriotism is a good thing. But anyway, on April the 8th, 1948, this is right before the end of the war. 3 weeks before the end of the war, she was shot down by a US Army Air Force fighter while she was transferring an unarmed two-seater single Bestmann training aircraft to southern Germany. Now, the Bestmann training aircraft is, man, it's not something you can fight with. You can't. It's impossible. So I'm sure that this brave US Army Air Force pilot had no difficulty shooting it down. No danger also whatsoever, nothing. I'm sure he claimed about 5 victories that day too, but you know what? They shot her down. She crash landed. She sustained a broken ankle. Now, guys, if you sustain a broken ankle, I think we can reasonably say that you shouldn't die of it, should you? Not immediately. I mean, I suppose if gangrene or something comes in afterwards, it can kill you. But she was taken to military hospital, and 2 hours later she was dead. Yeah, 2 hours later she was dead. Was he murdered because he was Griffin von Stauffenberg by this military doctor, this Nazi? Because the Nazis also had camps for the doctors. You know, all the doctors had to go like do his service at the camps to be educated about Nazism, fascism, things like that. Yeah, we have pictures of you. Don't deny. We know. And so something happened to the Griffin of von Stauffenberg, and she died. Was she murdered? Yes. But what did the military report says killed her? She had a skull base fracture, tearing of the left thigh, fracture of the right ankle. Bullshit. None of the first responders noted any head injuries, and she was 42 years old when she was killed. There's a brave woman. There's somebody which history don't know about, but we give her a little bit of spotlight here in this book, which is a good thing. Her husband then, Professor Dr. Alexander Schenk, Graf von Stauffenberg, he was actually then saved from the concentration camps. I think the Soviet army rescued him. He lived until 1964, and he got married again before he died. What a tragedy, guys. What a tragedy is war. What a tragedy. And I want to talk about here lastly, I just want to quickly mention something else. It's something which comes actually from the Guardian newspaper. Now, if you know anything about the Guardian newspaper, you would know that is like the official, they're being fed information quite a bit. It's like the New York Times. Whenever the CIA wants something to be shown to the world, they go to the New York Times. They're nothing but a little extension. Why anybody would advertise with the New York Times or the Guardian or these mouthpieces for the intelligence world, I don't know. Why you would even read this shite, I don't know. Unless, of course, you read it because you need to find out what the enemy is thinking or what they are trying to tell you so that you can know what they're up to. But anyway, The Guardian came out in 2014 and they say there's a human rights group called Reprieve. And this Reprieve group says that the US drone strikes campaign in the Middle East, let's call it Iraq, hello, has killed an unprecedented number of civilians. 96.5% versus only 3.5% of the terrorists who were targeted by the drones. It's a constant theme for me. I say this to you all the time. Under Obama, and before him a little bit of Bush, but primarily under Obama, they were murdering the wrong people. 96.5% of the times they would shoot these drones at people who they were not actually classifying as terrorists. And today it's worse. Because Israel anyway used artificial intelligence, so are the rest of the West, using AI to identify people who they say are terrorists. So in other words, I would be one. Because if you've seen me in 2008, perhaps with a guy who you think is a terrorist, now AI sees that, and then AI say, yeah, but this guy's hostile to the US anyway, look at his books. And AI doesn't have a cleverness about it to think, why is this guy saying these things? Is he trying to warn you? No, they don't think like that. No. And then they build up this picture, and the next moment there's a death order against you. By what? By AI. Can you see now why they spend so much money on AI? And you think it's for you to have a better life, you know? It's to quickly find answers. But what answers do you find? Do you think those answers are perhaps pre-programmed? Yeah, it's pre-programmed. You think this is part of something to force you in a certain direction, to think in a certain way? Yes, of course. And then Donald Trump came along. Yeah. You know what Donald Trump did? He moved this away from the Air Force and he put it under the CIA, and they put a blanket secrecy on it. So now today you don't know. You don't know how many innocents they're murdering. Because why? Because they're murdering so many, they got such bad publicity out of it, that they decided, no guys, we have to hide the information from our own people. That's failure. Hello, that's failure. The moment you start doing that, it's failure. Israel, remember when missiles came from Iran after your failed strikes? Remember that? Remember the two things you did? Let me remind you, because you might have forgotten. In the first place, you closed your airspace and you made an order that no Israeli with dual nationality, and all of them have dual nationality, can leave the country. Why? Because you were flippant so scared they would run away by the hundreds of thousands that would be seen as another victory or a defeat for you, victory for Iran and the Arabs. So you put an order out. Yeah, I have that order. I know it. That's, yeah. How about that? Yeah, the other failure of yours, of course, is to put a blanket ban on any videos or anything going online about the destruction caused by these Iranian missiles. Why did you do that, Netanyahu? Tell me. Well, you will say to me, we don't want to give, make it easy for the enemy to know actually they're hitting targets or not. We don't want to say that, unless they hit the hospital, of course. Like Israel didn't hit, 90% of the hospitals you destroyed in Gaza. Is that true? Yes. What about that? No, don't talk about that. It's fine, we did it. Doesn't matter. What about the civilian targets you hit there? Collapsing entire flat building or flats to kill one guy. No, that doesn't matter. We did it. Don't talk about that. No, it's fine. We were chosen, we can do whatever the hell we want. So you're not the chosen. No. When you stoned Stephen, you stop being the chosen. Not the chosen anymore. Really not. That's what the Bible says, but you don't read the Bible, do you? But it doesn't matter. I don't care. God will decide. But the moment you did that, by declaring that people are not or not to spread these videos or anything like that, that's when you admitted failure. That's when you admitted that you suffered so many damage, so much, that you couldn't afford this to go out. And you forgot, of course, there's things like Russian satellites, Chinese satellites, Iranian satellites. Yeah, yeah, yeah. They could clearly see the damage. So idiotic. Oh, what would have been better? To show the world, look, let's play the victim card. Look, we're being attacked here. Look, here's a little dead Benjamin. Oh, look, here's a little this. This is what your enemies do. Yeah. That's what they do. That's what they do in Gaza, everywhere else. The moment a child is killed, they show the world. Why? Because they know there's going to be sympathy, man. But you didn't go that route, did you? No. You got so frightened that you actually had to calm down and say, no, you're not allowed to leave a country. And besides that, you cannot show the damage. Yeah, stupid. But I understand, because of that dates you were panicking. Absolutely panicking. You were losing so badly. You're still losing. Anyway, doesn't matter. I hope it goes better with you. Wish you well. Peace, man. Peace. And then that was in 2014 when we found out about the actual rate of success, which is what? 3.5%. Oh, shame. Shame. And I'm talking now counter-terrorism. Can you tell me that's good enough? No, I don't even try. Then came, of course, Edward Snowden, and he leaked the drone papers. And they say the following: this is about Afghanistan. Documents detailing a special operation campaign in northeastern Afghanistan, Operation Haymaker, shows that between January 2012 and February 2013, US Special Operation airstrikes killed more than 200 people. Okay. What the F were you doing in Afghanistan in the first place? But okay, you've killed 200 people we know about now. How many of them were actually terrorists? Or let me rather say, how many of them were the intended targets? Out of the 200 which you killed with your drones and your airstrikes and whatever, how many of them were actually the intended targets? 35. 35 uit 200. I have no words. I have no words. The only thing which comes up to me, and it's in bold, it's in capitals, is pathetic. That's why I rate the US Special Forces so low. Really, I do. I rate you like snake shit on the bottom of the ocean. It's statistics like this which makes me laugh at you. But it also makes me say to you, don't come close to me. I don't want you close to my unit. I don't want to work with you. I don't want you anywhere close to me. Why? Because you're pathetic. This is it. Huh? Huh? You killed 200 people, and out of it, 235 were the intended targets. Yeah. And when out of it, 35, tell me how many of them were actual terrorists? 1, 2, 3? You don't fucking know. You don't know because you don't have intelligence. You don't have intelligence. You just go and kill people. And then what happens? You go home, oh, you're a hero now, but oh, you're also a druggie. You're also a drug addict. You deserve to be. And not only that, now you've created even more terrorism. And that terrorist then decides he's going to kill all white people he can see, man. He's here, white guy, he's an American, especially with fairly big people. Yeah, and he kills us. Brilliant, huh? Oh, you're so pathetic, man, pathetic. Then during one 5-month period of our operation, this is Haymaker now, according to the documents, this is the drone papers which were leaked, nearly 90% of the people killed in airstrikes were not the intended targets. Nearly 90% of it. Yeah, and then Barack Obama in 2016, this is right at the end, when he started getting a guilty complex about Libya and other places. He started saying things like, there's no doubt that some innocent people have been killed by the drone strikes. No doubt. Why don't I hear that, Barack? What? I don't hear, I'm sorry. We did our best, but shit happens in war. I don't hear that. What I hear is some people. Some people. 90% of those who were drowned were innocent, you idiot. Yeah, it's fine, it's fine. It's fine. I actually speak about the drone program in several books. And I speak out of my head now, but I'll say this to you and then we'll leave it. The drone operators actually earn a lot of money, six figure salaries, above $100,000 a year. They are very close to Las Vegas. They control these drones from afar with their satellites. Guarantee you, first time you start shooting at Russia or China, the satellites are gone. Yes, Ellen, yours too. I know about the Russian killer satellites that were designed to kill your entire network. And for any country who's stupid enough to allow Starlink into it, wake up. It's a military thing, it's a spy network, it's funded by the US military. It is not innocent at all. We saw that in Ukraine, we saw that with the Israeli war against Iran. We immediately Starlink was opened. Why was it open to Iran? Let me tell you why it was opened. So that in the first place, the suicide drones and teams of the Mossad inside Iran could function. Yes. And secondly, so that the dissidents could also do something there, that they are also in contact and that they can cause their terror. Yeah, we know. We see right through you. We're not idiots. We understand. We understand. Remember that. Whenever you start saying, oh, so great, there's nothing great about it. You're setting yourself up to be killed. That's all you're doing. A lot of people actually defected from the drone program, even though they were paid very, very well. And they all said there's one common factor there. In the first place, they were all subjected to hard rock, underground type of music. Why is that a problem? Well, if you read Oath of Evil, you will find out that music isn't just music. You can get music which is actually pleasing to God's ears, and then you get underground and that type of shite, hard rock, things like that. And they do something to you. There are tons and tons of evidence about this. You can go and research it a bit or read my books, and you will find out what music can actually do to you. In my time in the police, I actually arrested a guy who murdered a whole bunch of people. And I said to him, because he looks like a reasonable chap, I said, why did you do this? And he said, I got mad, I got insane. I was listening to this music and I just had to do it. And he went and he did it. So these people are deliberately being subjected to this type of music to get them in a certain frame of mind. Yeah. I can easily explain this to you. Forgive me, I'm a bit under the belt, but if you go to a disco and you see a woman is there shaking her body and you're shaking yourself and the heat is on and the drum beat is going, that's Satan. Yeah. You're now subjecting yourself to this type of thing. And then, of course, what you're going to do later, you're going to jump into bed with her. Yeah. You're not married, but you're doing that. Yeah. All these things, and from that comes what? All sorts of other things comes from that. Probably some disease. You deserve it. But anyway, music is powerful. It is powerful. Music isn't just music. And if you listen, there's a place called LED Ministries, LED Ministries. I'll leave a link for you here. They specialize in actually looking at what these actors and these musicians, what they actually say. Where does their inspiration come from to make this music? Satan. Comes directly from Satan. They sell their souls out to Satan and they go to what they call the crossroads. And then there they make a bargain with the devil. You might say to me, come on, man, it's not possible. Go and look at those people. Go and see what they have uncovered. Go and see how you take a little girl. She's all innocent. She was singing in the choir in the church. Then she gets to the big time, and suddenly she becomes this raging, horrible thing which is shaking her chest there at everybody, and she's making tons of money. And at the age of 27, she's dead. Yeah. Commit suicide or whatever. Yeah, or she's still alive, but the views and the things she sings about and the little signs she makes while she's singing, and she brings in this demonic, satanic things in her shows. Think it's by chance? Jews are behind it, eh? Yeah, it's always the Jews, isn't it? The Jews control Hollywood, yeah. Yeah, how many times have you heard that? No, no, my friends, it's not the Jews who control Hollywood, it's the Jesuits. Go and read Hope of Evil. You'll get surprises of your life because we quote the very highest people in Hollywood and other people where they say, no, it's not the Jews. Yeah, we might be Jews, but we report to other people. Yeah, who do you report it? To Satan's people. Yeah, there you go. There you go. You think it is by chance? No, no, it's not by chance. Some of them even committed suicide, some of these drone operators. Many of them became drug addicts. Many of them say that the use of drugs is quite adamant, quite popular there. They do it all the time because they know this is not really a computer game as they think in the beginning. There are real people dying. Real people are actually being killed. And if it is a genuine terrorist, I still have sympathy, I fully understand. But when you kill 90% a wrong person, an innocent, my sympathy level is less than zero with you. No, no, I have no sympathy with you whatsoever. Because you are going out, you don't have intelligence, you just murder people, and you just keep on murdering people, and what's the result? What is the result? You know, the nice thing about the James A books is that no one dies unnecessarily in those books. And of course, in Codename Celery 50, Lucy actually gets hold of his warlord and she tortures him to death, and I describe that. Why? It's a warning. Yeah, yeah, Mr. Warlord, if you perhaps somehow listen to me now, there might be some people coming after you and you will not die easily. If I'm in command, yes, I will just kill you and get going. But the other people might take their time. They might take their time. It all depends on how much time we have, what message we want to send, and of course, orders from above. Sometimes it is a message, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's quick and sometimes it's not. So we describe that in this book as well. It's a thoroughly satisfying event, but a very sad one because Lucy doesn't want to live. Lucy at that stage wanted to die. And it's the grace of God that she didn't die. It's the grace of God that she actually got through this. And today she's, as I always say to you, Lucy should be in your prayers. She's not normal. She'll never be normal, but she's functioning. And she's not dangerous anymore. When you see her on the shooting range, she's happy. She teaches people her skills. She out of a great game. And we often see each other. Whenever I'm in South Africa, I definitely go and look after Lucy. Stay a few days there. Drive me nuts. And that's fine. I'm sure I drive her nuts as well. Anyway, guys, this is Codename Celery 50. It's quite a long book, about 400 and something pages, if I remember correctly. Available in the usual formats at Amazon, hardcover, softcover, Kindle. None of my books available in Apple. You know why? It's a terrorist organization. They will not assist the FBI with terrorist investigations. That's by court orders. San Marino, 2015. Yes, Apple, screw you too. I will never buy your products. I will never support you. And I will never stop telling people how you refused to assist the FBI with terrorist investigations, simply because you rate your privacy higher than anything else. That is why you open your privacy servers and things to everybody else from the intelligence community, including who says that? The Israelis. Yeah. I think I don't know about it. Yeah, I know all about it. Yeah, we all do. Okay, guys, that's the story. Hope you enjoy the book. As I said, wonderful book to read. Lots of things in it. I haven't even touched 100 of it. So until we meet again, God bless.